When my phone buzzed that Tuesday afternoon, I never imagined those 16 words would unravel 7 years of carefully buried family secrets. Mom's text was simple enough. "We're skipping Emma's birthday this year. Things are really tight financially right now." I stared at the screen for a moment, then typed back, "No problem, totally understand." But understanding and accepting are two completely different things. 1 week later, Christmas morning arrived with its usual chaos of wrapping paper and excited squeals. While my 7-year-old daughter Emma unwrapped her modest gifts, I mindlessly scrolled through social media. That's when I saw it. The post that changed everything forever. My name is Hugo, and at 32, I thought I had my life figured out. Working as a marketing coordinator for a mid-sized advertising firm in suburban Cleveland, I earned a decent salary that allowed my wife Sarah and me to provide a comfortable life for Emma. We weren't wealthy, but we managed our finances responsibly, saved for the future, and always made sure Emma had what she needed. My relationship with my parents, Robert and Patricia, had always been cordial but somehow distant. Dad worked for 43 years as a plant supervisor at a steel manufacturing company before retiring 2 years ago. Mom spent her career as a high school secretary, retiring around the same time. They lived about 25 minutes away in the same ranch-style house where I grew up, the one with the faded blue shutters and overgrown rose bushes that Mom never seemed to find time to trim properly. My sister Jessica, 3 years older than me, lived even closer to our parents, just 8 minutes down the road in a sprawling 2-story colonial, with her husband Derek and their 2 children, Tyler, age 9, and Madison, age 11. Derek managed a local car dealership and did well for himself, while Jessica worked part-time as a dental hygienist. They always seemed to have the latest gadgets, took frequent weekend trips, and maintained a lifestyle that appeared comfortably above middle class. Growing up, I never questioned why Jessica seemed to receive more attention from our parents. She was the firstborn, the one who excelled in school, played 3 sports, and graduated summa cum laude from Ohio State. I was the quieter one, the one who preferred books to basketball, the one who chose a smaller college and a practical career path. It felt natural that she would remain closer to Mom and Dad. But as Emma played with her new art supplies that Christmas morning, carefully arranging her crayons by color, I began scrolling through my parents' Facebook posts from the past week. What I discovered made my stomach drop. There, posted just 2 days earlier, was a series of photographs from what appeared to be an elaborate Christmas celebration at my parents' house. The living room was decorated with professional-quality garland, expensive-looking ornaments, and a massive Douglas fir tree that must have cost at least $150. Underneath that tree sat piles of wrapped presents, clearly expensive based on their size and professional wrapping. But it was the next series of photos that truly stunned me. Tyler and Madison were surrounded by brand new electronics. An Xbox Series X, a Nintendo Switch, 2 iPads, what appeared to be a high-end laptop, and designer clothing items still in their boxes. Madison held up a pair of Apple AirPods Pro while Tyler displayed a new iPhone. The gifts appeared to total several $1,000s. The caption read, "Christmas morning magic with our precious grandchildren. Nothing makes us happier than seeing Tyler and Madison's smiles. Grandma and Grandpa love spoiling you both." I continued scrolling backward through their posts, and what I found made my hands shake. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was a pattern that stretched back through Emma's entire 7-year life. Last March, for Tyler's 9th birthday, professional photos of an elaborate party at a rented community center, complete with hired entertainment, catered food, and what appeared to be at least 30 guests. The birthday boy stood behind a custom-made cake shaped like a basketball court, surrounded by expensive sports equipment and electronics. 6 months ago, for Madison's 11th birthday, pictures from Chuck E. Cheese, but not just any Chuck E. Cheese celebration. They had rented the entire party room, hired additional staff, and the gift table overflowed with packages. Madison wore a brand new dress that I recognized as being from a boutique store in the expensive part of town. I scrolled further back. Halloween photos showed Tyler and Madison in elaborate, clearly expensive costumes. Easter pictures revealed professional family portraits and luxury Easter baskets filled with high-end chocolates and toys. Christmas photos from previous years showed the same pattern. Extensive, expensive giving sessions with my parents playing the role of doting, generous grandparents. Sarah noticed my increasingly tense posture as I continued scrolling through years of documentation. "Everything okay, honey?" she asked softly, glancing over at Emma, who remained blissfully absorbed in arranging her new art supplies. I showed her the phone screen, and her expression gradually shifted from confusion to understanding to anger. We had been together for 9 years, married for 8, and Sarah had witnessed firsthand how my parents treated Emma compared to Jessica's children. She had mentioned it before, gently, but I had always rationalized it away. Geographic proximity, I told myself. Jessica lived closer, so naturally the relationships were stronger, but this evidence was undeniable. As I screenshotted post after post, documenting years of lavish celebrations and gift-giving for Jessica's children, while Emma received minimal acknowledgement, the painful truth became clear. This wasn't about distance or convenience, or even favoritism. This was about deliberate exclusion. Emma looked up from her crayons and noticed my phone screen, which displayed one of the Christmas morning photos. "Are those Tyler and Madison with Grandma and Grandpa?" she asked innocently. "Yes, sweetie," I managed to say, my voice carefully controlled. "They got lots of presents," she observed without any hint of jealousy or sadness, just simple childhood observation. "That's nice." Sarah and I exchanged glances. Emma's innocent acceptance of the situation somehow made it even more heartbreaking. She had been conditioned over 7 years to expect less, to not even question why her grandparents treated her differently than her cousins. As I continued scrolling through the evidence, I realized this wasn't just about Christmas gifts or birthday parties. This was about something much deeper and more systematic. This was about a 7-year-old girl being taught that she was less valued, less worthy of attention and love from her extended family. And for the first time in my adult life, I felt something dark and determined growing in my chest. Something that told me this pattern was about to change dramatically. The next morning, while Sarah took Emma to her friend's house for a playdate, I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and began documenting everything I had discovered. But documentation alone wouldn't answer the central question that kept gnawing at me. If my parents truly were experiencing financial hardship, how could they afford such expensive gifts for Jessica's children? I needed to understand their actual financial situation, and I knew exactly where to start. My cousin Marcus worked as a loan officer at First National Bank, the same institution where my parents had maintained their accounts for over 25 years. Marcus and I had grown up together, more like brothers than cousins, and we still met for drinks occasionally when our schedules aligned. I called him that afternoon, keeping my tone casual. "Hey Marcus, I wanted to ask you something, and I need this to stay between us." "Of course, what's going on?" My parents mentioned they were having some financial difficulties, and I was thinking about helping them out, but I wanted to get a sense of their situation first. I don't want to embarrass them by offering help if they don't really need it, you know? Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Hugo, you know I can't give you specific account information, but I can tell you that your parents recently made some significant financial changes that don't really suggest hardship." "What do you mean?" "Well, about 6 months ago, they came in with a substantial deposit. I'm talking life-changing money. They paid off their mortgage completely, which was around $87,000 remaining. They also opened several high-yield certificate of deposit accounts and purchased a new vehicle with cash." My pen stopped moving across the legal pad. "How substantial are we talking about?" "The kind of deposit that comes from inheritance or life insurance. Definitely 6 figures, and they've been making regular large transfers to external accounts, which usually indicates they're helping family members financially." The room felt like it was spinning. "Marcus, are you certain about this?" "Absolutely. I processed some of the transactions personally. Your parents are probably in the best financial position they've ever been in. If they told you they were having money troubles, something else is going on." After hanging up with Marcus, I immediately drove to the county courthouse to access public records. Ohio maintains open records for property transactions, and within an hour, I had confirmed Marcus's information. My parents' mortgage had indeed been paid in full 6 months ago. The public record showed the payoff amount as $87,412. I also discovered they had purchased a brand new Buick Enclave, which retailed for approximately $45,000. The vehicle registration showed it was purchased with cash, no financing involved. But the most shocking discovery came when I searched for recent inheritance records. Ohio requires probate proceedings to be filed publicly, and when I searched for the surname Thompson, I found something that made my blood run cold. My Uncle Thomas, my father's older brother, who had lived in Florida, had died 8 months ago. The probate filing showed his estate was valued at approximately $437,000. The beneficiaries listed were Robert and Patricia Thompson, along with Hugo Thompson. I was named as a beneficiary in my uncle's will, but I had never been contacted about his death or any inheritance. I sat in my car outside the courthouse, staring at the legal documents, trying to process what I was seeing. Not only did my parents have money, they had more money than they had ever possessed in their entire lives. And somehow, I was supposed to be part of that inheritance. I drove home and immediately called the probate attorney listed on the documents, a lawyer named David Richardson in Sarasota, Florida. Mr. Richardson, my name is Hugo Thompson. I'm calling about my uncle Thomas Thompson's estate. I just discovered his probate filing and saw that I was listed as a beneficiary, but I was never contacted about his death or any inheritance proceedings. There was a long pause. Mr. Thompson, that's very concerning. We sent multiple certified letters to your address, starting 9 months ago. We also attempted phone contact. When we didn't hear from you, your parents informed us that you had declined your portion of the inheritance. I never received any letters, and I certainly never declined anything. I wasn't even aware my uncle had died. This is highly irregular. Your parents provided documentation indicating you had waived your inheritance rights. Let me pull the file. According to our records, you were entitled to $150,000 from your uncle's estate. Your parents received the remainder. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. Mr. Richardson, I never signed any waiver. I never received any communication about this. Something is very wrong here. Mr. Thompson, I think you need to contact law enforcement. What you're describing sounds like inheritance fraud, which is a serious felony in Florida and Ohio. I drove straight to Jessica's house. Her silver Honda Pilot sat in the driveway next to Derek's pickup truck. I rang the doorbell, and Derek answered, looking surprised to see me. Hugo, what brings you by? I need to talk to Jessica. Is she home? Sure, come on in. Jessica, Hugo's here. Jessica appeared from the kitchen, wearing a new sweater that I recognized as an expensive brand. This is unexpected. What's going on? I wanted to ask you about Uncle Thomas. Her expression changed instantly, becoming guarded. What about him? When did he die, Jessica? Why are you asking about this? Because I just discovered that he died 8 months ago, left me $150,000 in his will, and somehow I was never told about his death or my inheritance. Jessica's face went pale. She glanced at Derek, who suddenly looked very uncomfortable. Hugo, I think you should talk to Mom and Dad about this. I'm talking to you first, Jessica. Did you know I was named in Uncle Thomas's will? She was quiet for a long moment. Yes. Did you know I was never contacted about his death? Another pause. Yes. Did you help Mom and Dad hide this from me? Jessica looked down at her hands. Hugo, Uncle Thomas's estate was complicated. There were debts and legal issues. Mom and Dad were worried about involving you in all that stress. That's a lie, Jessica, and you know it. The estate was worth over $400,000, and there were no debts listed in the probate filing. Derek stepped forward. Maybe you should leave, Hugo. This conversation isn't going anywhere productive. I looked at my sister, the woman who had shared a childhood with me, who had been my maid of honor at Sarah's and my wedding, who had held Emma when she was born. Jessica, look me in the eye and tell me you didn't help our parents steal my inheritance. She couldn't meet my gaze. Just leave, Hugo. I drove home with my hands shaking, finally understanding the true scope of what had happened. My parents hadn't just hidden Uncle Thomas's death from me. They had actively participated in inheritance fraud, stealing $150,000 that legally belonged to me. and Jessica had helped them do it. But more than the money, I understood something even more devastating. Emma's exclusion from family celebrations wasn't coincidental. It was part of a calculated strategy to distance me from the family before they stole my inheritance. They had been systematically pushing me and my daughter away to make their theft easier to execute and conceal. As I pulled into my driveway, one thought burned clearly in my mind. They had picked the wrong person to steal from, and they had definitely picked the wrong child to hurt. That evening, while Emma watched her favorite cartoon and Sarah prepared dinner, I sat in my home office trying to piece together how my family had managed to coordinate such an elaborate deception. The inheritance fraud was bad enough, but the systematic exclusion of Emma from family events suggested a level of organization that required ongoing communication and planning. I was particularly bothered by something Derek had said during my confrontation with Jessica. He had seemed prepared for my visit, as if he had been expecting this conversation. That suggested Jessica had warned him, which meant she had advanced knowledge that I might discover the truth about Uncle Thomas's estate. The next morning, I took a personal day from work and drove to my parents' neighborhood. Instead of going directly to their house, I parked 2 blocks away and walked through the subdivision, trying to think through the logistics of what had happened. Mrs. Thompson, who lived next door to my parents, was outside collecting her mail. Margaret Thompson had been our neighbor for over 15 years and had always been friendly with our family. She waved when she saw me approaching. "Hugo, how nice to see you. I was just thinking about Emma the other day. How is she doing?" "She's doing great, Mrs. Thompson. Actually, I wanted to ask you something. Have you noticed Jessica visiting Mom and Dad more frequently over the past year?" "Oh my, yes. She's been here quite a lot, especially in the past few months. Often with papers and folders, like they were conducting business of some kind. Just last week she was here with what looked like legal documents. This confirmed my suspicion that Jessica had been actively involved in managing the inheritance fraud. Did you notice anything else unusual?" "Well, it's probably nothing, but I did think it was odd how excited they all seemed whenever the mail arrived. Your father would rush out to get it, and if Jessica was visiting, she would look through it with them. They seemed particularly interested in certified mail and legal envelopes. I felt my jaw clench. They had been intercepting my mail, looking for communications from Uncle Thomas's estate attorney. I thanked Mrs. Thompson and walked back to my car, but instead of driving home, I went to the post office. I requested to speak with the supervisor about mail delivery issues at my address. "We've had some concerns about missing mail over the past year," I explained to the postal supervisor. A middle-aged woman named Carol, specifically certified mail and legal documents. "Is there any way to track delivery attempts?" Carol pulled up records for my address on her computer. "I see several certified mail delivery attempts to your address over the past 10 months, mostly from legal offices in Florida and Ohio. According to our records, these were all successfully delivered." "That's impossible. I never received any certified mail from legal offices." Carol frowned at her screen. "The delivery confirmations show they were signed for by Patricia Thompson. My mother had been signing for my certified mail. Miss Carol, Patricia Thompson is my mother. She doesn't live at my address." "That's very concerning, Mr. Thompson. Mail fraud is a federal crime. You should report this to postal inspectors immediately." Instead of going to the postal authorities immediately, I decided I needed more evidence of the family's coordination. I suspected that if they were organized enough to intercept my mail and forge legal documents, they were probably communicating regularly about their deception. That afternoon I called Marcus again. "I need another favor, and this one might be more difficult." "What do you need?" "My family has been coordinating some kind of deception that involves significant financial fraud. I suspect they're communicating regularly through text messages or group chats. Is there any way you could help me understand how they're coordinating their activities?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Hugo, that sounds like you're getting into serious legal territory. Maybe you should contact a lawyer instead of trying to investigate this yourself." "I will, but I need to understand the full scope of what they've done before I involve attorneys. My 7-year-old daughter has been hurt by this, Marcus. They've been systematically excluding her from family events as part of covering up financial fraud. Give me until tomorrow. Let me see what I can find out through legitimate channels." The next day, Marcus called with information that exceeded my worst fears. Hugo, I spoke with my wife Amy about your situation. You remember Amy works in telecommunications, right? Well, she mentioned something interesting. She said most families these days use group messaging apps to coordinate activities, especially when they're trying to keep information from certain family members. What kind of apps? WhatsApp is really common. It allows private group chats where participants can share messages, photos, and documents. Amy said if your family was trying to coordinate a deception, they would almost certainly be using something like that. How would I find out if they have a group chat? That's the tricky part. You would need access to one of their phones, or someone would have to add you to the group. I spent the rest of the day thinking about how to gain access to evidence of their coordination. That evening, while putting Emma to bed, she mentioned something that gave me an idea. Daddy, Tyler showed me his new phone at Christmas. He has lots of fun apps and games on it. What kinds of apps, sweetheart? He showed me one where he talks to Grandma and Grandpa and Madison in a group. They sent pictures and messages to each other all the time. My heart started racing. Do you remember what the app looked like? It had a green icon with a white phone on it. WhatsApp. Tyler, at 9 years old, was part of a family group chat that excluded me, Sarah, and Emma. The next morning, I called Amy directly. She and Marcus had been married for 5 years, and we had socialized together occasionally. Amy, Marcus mentioned you work in telecommunications. I need advice about something sensitive. Of course. What's going on? I explained the situation briefly, focusing on the inheritance fraud and Emma's exclusion from family activities. I suspect my family is using a WhatsApp group to coordinate their activities, and somehow they've included my 9-year-old nephew but excluded my daughter and me from family communications. That's horrible, Hugo. And yes, that's exactly how families coordinate deception these days. They create private groups and share information, photos, and plans. The fact that they included Tyler suggests they're not even trying to hide their activities from the children. Is there any legal way I can obtain evidence of their group communications? If you're planning to pursue legal action for fraud, your attorney can subpoena telecommunications records. But that takes time. However, if Tyler has been showing Emma his phone and talking about the group chat, there might be a more direct approach. Amy explained that WhatsApp groups often have names that reflect their purpose, and if Tyler was comfortable showing Emma the app, he might not understand that it was meant to be secret from our family. That weekend, when Jessica dropped Tyler and Madison off at our parents' house for their regular Saturday visit, I drove over to pick up Emma for a cousin playdate that I had arranged with Jessica in advance. This was my opportunity to learn more about the group chat. While the children played in the backyard, I approached Tyler casually. Tyler, Emma mentioned you have some cool apps on your phone. Could you show me how they work? Tyler, like most 9-year-olds, was eager to demonstrate his technical knowledge. He pulled out his iPhone and began showing me various games and apps. This is my favorite, he said, opening WhatsApp. It's how our whole family talks to each other. I watched as he navigated to his chat list. There, at the top of his recent conversations, was a group called Thompson Family Updates, with 6 participants. Who's in your family group? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Grandma, Grandpa, Mom, Dad, Madison, and me, Tyler replied proudly. That sounds fun. Do you share pictures and messages about family events? All the time. Look, here's pictures from Christmas morning. Tyler scrolled through dozens of messages and photos from the group chat, showing me months of coordination and planning. What I saw in those brief moments made my hands shake. Messages about hiding Uncle Thomas's death. Discussions about intercepting my mail. Photos of expensive gifts purchased for Tyler and Madison, with what they called Thomas money. And most devastating of all, messages where Jessica encouraged our parents to exclude Emma from family events and celebrations. Tyler, could you scroll back a little further? I want to see more of those Christmas photos. As Tyler scrolled through the chat history, I quickly took mental notes of key messages and dates. There were hundreds of messages spanning nearly a year, documenting the entire inheritance fraud conspiracy and the systematic exclusion of my family from Thompson family activities. This is really cool, Tyler. Does Emma ever see these family messages? Tyler looked confused. Emma's not in our family group. Mom says you guys have your own family communications. I spent the rest of the afternoon with a sickening feeling in my stomach. My family had created an organized communication network that deliberately excluded my daughter from her own extended family. They had been coordinating for nearly a year to steal my inheritance, while simultaneously pushing Emma out of family relationships. But now I had seen the evidence. I knew exactly what they had done, how they had done it, and who had participated. It was time to consult with an attorney and begin fighting back. Monday morning, I called in sick to work and began researching estate attorneys in the Cleveland area. I needed someone who specialized in inheritance fraud and had experience with family legal disputes. After reading reviews and checking credentials, I scheduled a consultation with Jennifer Walsh, a partner at Walsh & Associates who had 23 years of experience in estate litigation. Miss Walsh's office was located in a downtown Cleveland high-rise, and her credentials displayed on the wall indicated she had handled numerous high-profile inheritance disputes. She was a woman in her early 50s with a direct, professional demeanor that immediately put me at ease. "Mr. Thompson, tell me about your situation," she said, pulling out a legal pad and pen. I spent 45 minutes explaining everything. Uncle Thomas's death, the inheritance I never knew existed, my parents' sudden financial improvement, the intercepted mail, Jessica's involvement, and the family group chat that excluded Emma and me from family communications. Miss Walsh took detailed notes throughout my explanation. When I finished, she was quiet for several minutes, reviewing her notes. "Mr. Thompson, what you're describing constitutes several serious felonies: inheritance fraud, mail fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and forgery. The federal penalties alone could result in significant prison time for everyone involved. I want to recover my inheritance, but more importantly, I want to protect my daughter from further emotional abuse from these people. Let me contact the Florida attorney who handled your uncle's estate. I need to see the original will and examine any documents they claim you signed waiving your inheritance rights." Miss Walsh called David Richardson, the Sarasota probate attorney, while I sat in her office. She put the call on speaker so I could hear the conversation. "Mr. Richardson, I'm representing Hugo Thompson regarding his uncle's estate. We need to examine the waiver documents that were allegedly signed by my client." "Miss Walsh, I've been hoping to hear from Mr. Thompson. Those waiver documents never felt legitimate to me, but the family insisted they were authentic. What concerns did you have about the documents?" "Several things. First, the signature looked different from other Hugo Thompson documents I had on file from previous family legal matters. Second, the waiver was extremely comprehensive, essentially signing away all rights to inheritance, property, and even notification of estate proceedings. Most people don't waive notification rights unless they're trying to hide something. Third, the documents were delivered by Jessica Thompson rather than Hugo himself, which is highly unusual for such significant legal instruments." Miss Walsh glanced at me. "Mr. Richardson, do you still have the original waiver documents?" "Yes, and I also have handwriting samples from previous documents signed by the real Hugo Thompson. I suspected forgery from the beginning, but Robert and Patricia Thompson insisted their son had personal reasons for wanting to distance himself from the family and waive his inheritance. Can you email those documents to me today for forensic handwriting analysis?" "Absolutely. I'll send everything within the hour." After hanging up with Mr. Richardson, Miss Walsh explained the next steps. "We're going to conduct professional handwriting analysis on the forged waiver documents. We'll also subpoena your family's bank records to track where the inheritance money went. But first, I want to obtain copies of that WhatsApp group chat Tyler showed you." "How can we do that legally?" "If your nephew was willing to show you the group chat voluntarily, and if his mother consented to him having access to family communications, then the messages aren't private. We can request that Jessica provide copies of the group chat as evidence in estate proceedings. She'll never voluntarily provide that. Then we'll subpoena the telecommunications records directly from WhatsApp. It will take longer, but we can obtain complete chat histories including deleted messages." Miss Walsh began drafting legal documents while I waited. 2 hours later, she had prepared a comprehensive legal strategy that would simultaneously recover my inheritance, expose the fraud conspiracy, and protect Emma from further family manipulation. "Mr. Thompson, I need to warn you that pursuing this case will likely destroy your relationships with your parents and sister permanently. Are you prepared for that consequence? I thought about Emma's innocent question. They forgot me again? I thought about 7 years of systematically excluding my daughter from family love and attention. I thought about my family stealing $150,000 that belonged to me while claiming poverty to avoid contributing $50 to Emma's birthday party. Miss Walsh, these people already destroyed our family relationships when they decided to steal from me and emotionally abuse my daughter. I'm not destroying anything. I'm exposing what they've already done. 3 days later, Miss Walsh received the handwriting analysis results from a certified forensic document examiner. The expert's report was unambiguous. The signature on the inheritance waiver documents was not mine. In fact, the handwriting analysis concluded that the signature was highly consistent with handwriting samples from Jessica Thompson. My sister had forged my signature to steal my inheritance. Miss Walsh also received bank records through legal discovery that showed exactly where Uncle Thomas's inheritance money had gone. My parents had received $287,000 from the estate. Of that amount, they had transferred $90,000 directly to Jessica's personal checking account. They had also paid for Tyler and Madison's private school tuition for 2 years in advance, totaling $34,000. Additionally, they had funded a vacation rental property investment that Jessica and Derek purchased in Myrtle Beach, contributing $85,000 toward the down payment. In total, Jessica's family had received or benefited from approximately $209,000 of Uncle Thomas's inheritance, nearly all of which should have legally gone to me. But the most devastating discovery came when Miss Walsh obtained records from the children's educational trust accounts that my grandfather had established years earlier. Mr. Thompson, did you know that your grandfather created educational trusts for all his grandchildren, including Emma? I knew Grandpa had set aside some money for the grandchildren's education, but I never knew the details. Each grandchild received a $25,000 educational trust when they were born. The trusts were managed by your parents as trustees, with the understanding that funds would be available when the children reached college age. Miss Walsh showed me the trust account statements. Tyler and Madison's trust accounts have been completely depleted. The funds were withdrawn over the past 3 years to pay for private school tuition, summer camps, music lessons, sports equipment, and other enrichment activities. What about Emma's trust? That's where this gets particularly egregious. Emma's trust account currently has a balance of $347. Nearly all $25,000 has been withdrawn over the past 4 years. Where did Emma's trust money go? Miss Walsh showed me the withdrawal records. According to the bank records, Emma's trust funds were used to pay for Tyler and Madison's activities, piano lessons, soccer camps, private tutoring, even vacation expenses. Your parents used Emma's educational trust to finance your sister's children's enrichment activities, while Emma received nothing. I sat in stunned silence, trying to process the full scope of my family's betrayal. They hadn't just stolen my inheritance. They had also robbed Emma's educational future to benefit Jessica's children. For 4 years, they had been systematically depleting my daughter's college fund, while pretending they couldn't afford to contribute to her birthday party. Miss Walsh, I want to pursue criminal charges for all of this. Inheritance fraud, trust fund theft, mail fraud, conspiracy, forgery, everything. Mr. Thompson, criminal prosecution is handled by district attorneys, not private attorneys. But I can help you prepare a comprehensive case file that documents all the criminal activity, and we can pursue civil restitution for financial damages. What kind of financial damages are we talking about? Your original inheritance was $150,000. With interest and penalties for fraudulent deprivation, that amount is now approximately $173,000. Emma's trust fund depletion totals $24,653. We can also seek punitive damages for emotional distress, particularly regarding Emma's systematic exclusion from family relationships. Conservatively, we're looking at recovery of approximately $250,000, plus attorney fees and court costs. When can we file the lawsuit? I can have papers ready for filing by tomorrow morning. But Mr. Thompson, I recommend we coordinate the civil filing with criminal charges. The combination will have much more impact, both legally and financially. I walked out of Miss Walsh's office that afternoon knowing that my family's carefully constructed deception was about to collapse. They had spent nearly a year stealing from me and emotionally abusing my daughter, apparently believing I would never discover their fraud. They were about to learn otherwise. That evening, I sat Emma down for a conversation about family relationships. Emma, I want you to know that you are loved and valued, regardless of how other people treat you. Sometimes adults make bad choices that hurt children, but that doesn't mean the children did anything wrong. Are you talking about Grandma and Grandpa, Daddy? Why would you think that? Because they don't visit me like they visit Tyler and Madison, and they don't give me presents like they give Tyler and Madison. But you and Mommy always tell me I'm special. My heart broke again, but this time it was accompanied by fierce determination. Emma, you are the most special little girl in the world to Mommy and me. And sometimes we have to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Are you going to stand up for me, Daddy? Yes, sweetheart, I absolutely am. While Miss Walsh prepared the legal documents for filing, I continued investigating the financial trail of my family's deception. What I discovered in the following week revealed an even more systematic level of theft and manipulation than I had initially imagined. Miss Walsh had subpoenaed 5 years of bank records for all accounts where my parents served as trustees or co-signers. Ohio law requires detailed record-keeping for trust accounts, especially those involving minor beneficiaries, and my parents had apparently been sloppy about maintaining proper documentation. Mr. Thompson, I need you to see these trust account statements, Miss Walsh said during our meeting. What we discovered goes far beyond Emma's educational trust. She spread dozens of bank statements across her conference table. Your grandfather established trusts for all his grandchildren, Tyler, Madison, and Emma. Each trust was funded with $25,000 and was designed to grow through conservative investments until the children reached 18. I studied the statements, trying to understand the complex financial transactions. What exactly am I looking at? Systematic theft spanning 4 years. Tyler and Madison's trusts were completely depleted, as we discussed. But we also discovered that your parents established what they called family enhancement accounts, using trust funds from all 3 grandchildren. Miss Walsh pointed to a series of transfers that began 3 years earlier. They moved money from the individual trust accounts into joint accounts that they controlled entirely. Then they used those funds to pay for what they categorized as family activities and grandchildren enrichment. What kind of activities? Family vacation to Disney World, $8,400. Professional family photography sessions, $2,100. Home renovations to create a grandchildren's playroom, $11,700. Holiday decorating and entertainment expenses, $4,900 annually for 3 years. I felt sick. They used the grandchildren's trust funds to finance their own lifestyle improvements. It gets worse. Look at these expense categories. Miss Walsh showed me detailed transaction records. Private school application fees for Tyler and Madison, $1,200. SAT prep courses, $2,400. Summer camp deposits, $7,800. Music lesson payments, $3,600 annually. All of this came from the trust funds? Every penny. But here's the most egregious part. They categorized these expenses as educational benefits for all grandchildren in their trust documentation, but Emma never participated in any of these activities. Miss Walsh showed me the most damaging evidence. Detailed receipts and records that my parents had meticulously maintained. For tax purposes, they needed to document trust fund expenditures, so they had kept records of everything. Piano lessons for Tyler and Madison, paid from trust funds. 3 years, totaling $8,400. Emma was never enrolled in piano lessons. Soccer camp for Tyler, paid from trust funds. 4 summers, totaling $6,200. Emma was never enrolled in soccer camp. Private tutoring for Madison in mathematics, paid from trust funds. 2 years, totaling $5,700. Emma never received private tutoring. How is this legal? How did they justify using Emma's trust money for activities she didn't participate in? They couldn't justify it legally. which is why this constitutes trust fund embezzlement. But look at their internal documentation. Miss Walsh showed me handwritten notes in my mother's writing that had been included with the bank records. The notes revealed the twisted logic behind their theft. Emma's educational needs are adequately met through public school and her parents' resources. Tyler and Madison require additional enrichment opportunities due to their advanced capabilities and greater potential for academic achievement. Trust fund expenditures should be allocated based on educational necessity and long-term family benefit. My mother had literally written a justification for stealing from Emma's educational trust because she believed Tyler and Madison were more academically gifted and deserved better opportunities. Miss Walsh, this is documentation of deliberate, premeditated theft from a 7-year-old girl's education fund. It's also evidence of systematic financial abuse and discrimination. Your parents weren't just stealing money. They were making calculated decisions about which grandchild deserved educational opportunities. But the financial documentation revealed an even more disturbing pattern. Miss Walsh had also obtained records from my parents' personal accounts, and the timeline showed that their theft from Emma's trust fund had escalated dramatically after Uncle Thomas's death. Look at these dates carefully, Miss Walsh said. Uncle Thomas died in March. Your parents received inheritance proceeds in May, but the largest trust fund withdrawals began in June and continued through December. I don't understand. If they had inheritance money, why did they continue stealing from Emma's trust? Because they were using Emma's trust fund to conceal the source of their new wealth. Instead of using inheritance money directly for Tyler and Madison's activities, they continued using trust funds and deposited the inheritance money into investment accounts. Miss Walsh showed me investment account statements that documented this strategy. They invested most of Uncle Thomas's inheritance in high-yield CDs and mutual funds, using Emma's trust money to maintain their current lifestyle and spending patterns. This way, if anyone questioned their sudden ability to afford expensive gifts and activities, they could claim they were using trust funds rather than revealing the inheritance they stole from you. They used Emma's college fund to launder my stolen inheritance. That's exactly what they did. And based on this evidence, they planned to continue this pattern indefinitely. Miss Walsh pulled out one final document that made my hands shake with anger. This is a financial planning document your mother prepared 6 months ago. It projects trust fund usage through the next 4 years. The document showed that my parents had planned to completely deplete Emma's trust fund by the time she turned 10, using her money to finance Tyler and Madison's high school activities and college preparation. Emma's education fund would be entirely gone before she reached middle school. They had a 4-year plan to steal every penny of Emma's educational trust, while using that money to give Tyler and Madison every possible advantage. I stood up and walked to the window, trying to control my rage. For nearly 2 years, Sarah and I had been carefully saving money for Emma's college education, contributing $200 monthly to a college savings account. We made financial sacrifices to ensure Emma would have educational opportunities, while my parents were systematically stealing from the trust fund my grandfather had established specifically for her benefit. Miss Walsh, I want to pursue criminal charges immediately. This isn't just about money. This is about protecting Emma from people who view her as less worthy of opportunities and resources. I agree completely. This level of systematic financial abuse, particularly targeting a child, will be taken very seriously by prosecutors. What about Jessica's involvement in all of this? The bank records show that Jessica was aware of the trust fund situation. She received statements as a secondary contact on the accounts, and she co-signed several transactions. She knew Emma's trust money was being used for her children's benefit, so she participated in stealing from Emma, based on these records. Yes. Jessica actively participated in depleting Emma's educational trust fund to benefit Tyler and Madison. Miss Walsh began organizing the evidence files. Mr. Thompson, we have documentation of multiple felonies: inheritance fraud, trust fund embezzlement, mail fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. The financial trail is clear, the intent is documented, and the damages are substantial. When can we file charges? I'm meeting with the district attorney tomorrow morning. Given the complexity and the amount of money involved, they'll likely assign this to their white-collar crime unit. I left Miss Walsh's office that afternoon knowing that my family had not just betrayed me financially, but had spent years systematically ensuring that Emma would have fewer opportunities than her cousins. They had stolen her educational future to benefit Tyler and Madison, while maintaining the appearance of financial responsibility. That evening, I called Sarah at work to update her on what we had discovered. "Sarah, it's worse than we thought. They didn't just steal my inheritance. They've been stealing from Emma's college fund for 4 years." "What do you mean?" I explained the trust fund situation, the systematic theft, and my parents' written justification for giving Tyler and Madison educational advantages while depleting Emma's resources. Sarah was quiet for a long time. "Hugo, they've been stealing from our daughter's future while we've been struggling to save money for her college education for 4 years. And they plan to continue until Emma's trust was completely gone. When do we file criminal charges?" "Tomorrow." Sarah's voice was firm and determined. "Good. These people have hurt our daughter long enough." Miss Walsh met with District Attorney Patricia Brennan on Friday morning, and by noon the decision had been made to pursue criminal charges. DA Brennan assigned the case to the White-Collar Crime Unit, and Detective Lisa Martinez was appointed as the primary investigator. Detective Martinez called me that afternoon to schedule an interview. "Mr. Thompson, the DA's office has reviewed the evidence your attorney provided, and we're prepared to pursue multiple felony charges against your parents and sister. However, I need to interview you directly to establish timeline and intent." We met at the police station downtown on Monday morning. Detective Martinez was a woman in her early 40s with 15 years of experience investigating financial crimes. She had reviewed all the evidence Miss Walsh had gathered and had some pointed questions about my family's coordination. "Mr. Thompson, the evidence suggests this wasn't opportunistic fraud, but rather a carefully planned conspiracy spanning nearly 2 years. Can you help me understand how your family managed to coordinate such an elaborate deception?" I explained about the WhatsApp group chat, the intercepted mail, Jessica's involvement in forging documents, and the systematic exclusion of Emma from family communications. "We're going to need evidence of their electronic communications. WhatsApp keeps records of group chats, including deleted messages, and we can obtain those records through search warrants." "How long will that take?" "If we file charges this week, we can execute search warrants immediately. We'll seize their phones and electronic devices, which will give us complete access to their communications." Detective Martinez explained the criminal charges they plan to file: inheritance fraud, trust fund embezzlement, mail fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Combined, these charges carried potential prison sentences of 12 to 15 years for each defendant. "Mr. Thompson, I need to ask you about timing. When would you like us to execute these arrests?" I thought about Emma, who was still innocent of the family drama surrounding her. I thought about Christmas morning, and the devastating contrast between Tyler and Madison's lavish gifts and Emma's modest celebration. I thought about my daughter whispering, "They forgot me again." "Detective Martinez, I want this to happen on Christmas morning." "That's an unusual request. Can you explain why?" "Because Christmas morning is when my family gathers to celebrate their wealth and their favoritism toward Jessica's children. I want them to experience consequences for their actions at the moment when they're enjoying the fruits of their theft." Detective Martinez smiled grimly. "I understand completely. Christmas morning arrests send a clear message about the impact of their crimes on family relationships." Miss Walsh worked with Detective Martinez to coordinate the legal strategy. Criminal charges would be filed on Christmas Eve, with arrests and search warrants executed early Christmas morning. Simultaneously, Miss Walsh would file civil lawsuits seeking financial restitution and punitive damages. "Mr. Thompson, this coordinated approach will freeze their assets immediately and prevent them from hiding or spending additional money before trial." On December 23rd, Miss Walsh called to confirm that everything was ready. Criminal charges have been filed. Search warrants are signed. Asset freezing orders are prepared. Tomorrow morning, your family's financial crimes will be exposed completely. That evening, I had a difficult conversation with Emma about family relationships and justice. "Emma, tomorrow is Christmas, and we're going to have a quiet celebration here at home with Mommy and me. Are we going to see Grandma and Grandpa?" "No, sweetheart. Grandma and Grandpa have been making some bad choices that hurt our family, and they're going to face consequences for those choices." "What kind of bad choices?" I chose my words carefully. They've been taking things that didn't belong to them, and they've been treating you differently than they treat Tyler and Madison. That's not fair, and it's not right. Are they in trouble? Yes, Emma. They're going to be in serious trouble. But I want you to understand that none of this is your fault. You are a wonderful, special little girl, and the way they treated you says something about them, not about you. Emma hugged me tightly. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, sweetheart. And I will always protect you. Christmas Eve was surreal. Sarah, Emma, and I had a quiet dinner together and watched holiday movies. Emma was excited about Christmas morning, unaware that her grandparents and aunt were about to experience a very different kind of Christmas. I barely slept that night. At 6:30 Christmas morning, my phone rang. Detective Martinez's voice was professional and satisfied. Mr. Thompson, search warrants have been executed. Your parents and sister are in custody. We've seized their electronic devices, financial records, and evidence of the fraud conspiracy. Were there any problems? None at all. We have complete documentation of their communications, including months of WhatsApp messages planning and coordinating the inheritance fraud. We also found handwritten notes detailing their strategy for excluding Emma from family activities. What happens next? They'll be arraigned after the holiday weekend. Bail will be set based on flight risk and the amount of money involved. Given the systematic nature of their crimes, bail will likely be substantial. At 9:25 that Christmas morning, exactly as predicted, my father began pounding on my front door. Hugo, open this door. We need to talk. I looked through the window and saw my father on the front porch, still in his pajamas, with my mother and Jessica standing behind him. All three looked panicked and desperate. I opened the door and stood calmly in the doorway. Good morning, Dad. Merry Christmas. What did you do? The police were at our house this morning. They arrested us. They took our phones and computers. I exposed your crimes, Dad. Inheritance fraud, trust fund embezzlement, mail fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. My mother started crying. Hugo, you don't understand. We can explain everything. I understand perfectly, Mom. You stole my inheritance, depleted Emma's college fund, intercepted my mail, and forged legal documents. You coordinated a year-long conspiracy to defraud me while systematically excluding my daughter from family relationships. Jessica stepped forward. Hugo, we're family. We can work this out without involving lawyers and police. You're not my family, Jessica. Family doesn't steal from each other and abuse children. My father's voice was desperate. Hugo, think about what this will do to the family. Think about Tyler and Madison. I have thought about Tyler and Madison, Dad. I've thought about how you taught them that some children deserve more love and opportunities than others. I've thought about how you included them in your conspiracy communications, while excluding Emma from family relationships. We never meant to hurt Emma, my mother sobbed. You absolutely meant to hurt Emma. You wrote notes justifying stealing from her education fund because you believed she was less worthy of opportunities than Tyler and Madison. You deliberately excluded her from family celebrations to make your theft easier to conceal. Sarah appeared beside me in the doorway. You should leave now, she said firmly. Our daughter doesn't need to see the people who stole from her crying about the consequences of their crimes. My parents and Jessica left that morning facing multiple felony charges, frozen assets, and the complete collapse of their carefully constructed deception. Emma had a beautiful Christmas morning with parents who loved her unconditionally and who had finally stood up to protect her from family members who viewed her as less valuable than her cousins. Justice, I realized, was the best Christmas gift I could give my daughter. The following weeks brought a cascade of legal consequences that completely dismantled my family's financial crimes and exposed the full scope of their systematic deception. Detective Martinez's investigation revealed evidence that exceeded even my worst suspicions. The WhatsApp group chat contained over 800 messages spanning 14 months, documenting every aspect of the conspiracy. The messages showed that my parents and Jessica had been planning to steal my inheritance since before Uncle Thomas even died, discussing ways to intercept communications and prevent me from learning about his illness. The most damaging messages were those where Jessica actively encouraged our parents to exclude Emma from family events. In one particularly cruel exchange, Jessica wrote, Emma's birthday party would just complicate things right now. We need to keep Hugo at distance until the Thomas situation is completely resolved. Les contacts means fewer questions. My mother had responded, I feel bad about Emma, but you're right. This is too important to risk. The forensic examination of their phones also revealed deleted messages discussing their long-term plan to continue stealing from Emma's trust fund. Jessica had researched private high schools for Tyler and Madison and calculated that depleting Emma's trust completely would provide enough funding for both children's secondary education. At their arraignment, bail was set at $200,000 each for my parents and $300,000 for Jessica due to her leadership role in the conspiracy. None of them could post bail immediately because their assets had been frozen pending criminal trial. Miss Walsh's civil lawsuit proceeded simultaneously with the criminal case. The civil discovery process revealed additional financial crimes, including tax fraud related to their misuse of the educational trust funds. They had claimed tax deductions for educational expenses while using trust money for personal vacation and entertainment costs. 3 months after the arrests, Jessica agreed to cooperate with prosecutors in exchange for reduced charges. Her testimony provided complete details about how they had coordinated the conspiracy, including her role in forging my signature and intercepting my mail. Jessica's cooperation was devastating to your parents' defense, Miss Walsh explained during one of our meetings. She provided detailed testimony about their planning, including recorded phone conversations where they discussed contingency plans if you discovered the fraud. The recorded conversations revealed that my parents had been prepared to claim the inheritance theft was a family misunderstanding and offer to repay a portion of the stolen money if I discovered their crimes. They never anticipated that I would pursue criminal charges or that their systematic abuse of Emma would be exposed. 6 months after the arrests, my parents pleaded guilty to multiple felony charges in exchange for prison sentences of 4 years each. Jessica pleaded guilty to conspiracy and fraud charges in exchange for 2 years in prison and 5 years of probation. More importantly for Emma's future, the court ordered complete financial restitution. Miss Walsh's calculations, supported by forensic accounting, showed that I was entitled to recovery of my original inheritance plus interest, Emma's depleted trust fund plus penalties, and punitive damages for emotional distress. The total financial recovery was $312,000, significantly more than my original inheritance. The court also ordered my parents to pay Emma's college tuition expenses directly when she reaches college age, ensuring that their theft wouldn't impact her educational opportunities. Mr. Thompson, the court's restitution order is unusually comprehensive, Miss Walsh explained. The judge was particularly concerned about the systematic nature of Emma's exclusion from family resources and relationships. The order ensures that Emma will have greater educational opportunities than she would have had without your parents' crimes. The house that my parents had purchased with stolen inheritance money was sold to satisfy part of the restitution order. Jessica and Derek had to sell their vacation property investment and their primary residence to pay their portion of the financial penalties. But beyond the financial justice, the most meaningful outcome was Emma's improved sense of self-worth and family belonging. With the toxic family dynamics exposed and ended, Emma began to flourish in ways I hadn't expected. Without the constant subtle messaging that she was less valued than her cousins, her confidence grew dramatically. She began participating more actively in school activities, made new friendships, and expressed her opinions more freely. Sarah and I used part of the financial recovery to establish a robust college fund for Emma, but we also invested in enrichment activities that my parents had denied her. Emma began piano lessons, joined a youth soccer league, and attended summer camps that expanded her horizons and talents. Daddy, I'm glad we don't see Grandma and Grandpa anymore, Emma told me one evening while we worked on a puzzle together. I like our family better when it's just us. Why is that, sweetheart? Because you and Mommy make me feel special every day. Grandma and Grandpa made me feel like I wasn't good enough. 6 months later, Emma asked if she could write a letter to the judge who had handled our case. With Sarah's and my guidance, she wrote, Dear Judge Walker, thank you for helping my daddy protect me from people who were stealing my college money. I didn't understand why Grandma and Grandpa didn't love me as much as Tyler and Madison, but now I know it wasn't because I wasn't good enough. Daddy says you made sure I can go to college when I grow up. That makes me very happy. My daddy is the best daddy in the world, because he fought for me when I was too little to fight for myself. Judge Walker wrote back, telling Emma that her letter reminded him why he became a judge, and that protecting children like her from family financial abuse was one of his most important responsibilities. A year after the arrests, Tyler and Madison's lives had changed dramatically. Without their grandparents' financial support, and with their parents facing significant financial hardship, they had to transfer from private schools to public schools and give up expensive extracurricular activities. Jessica occasionally attempted to contact me, claiming she wanted to apologize and rebuild family relationships. I never responded to her messages. The people who could systematically steal from a 7-year-old girl's education fund, while planning to continue that theft for years, demonstrated a level of moral corruption that couldn't be forgiven or forgotten. Emma, now 8 years old and thriving in 2nd grade, sometimes asked about her cousins and grandparents. I always answered honestly, but age-appropriately. Emma, sometimes adults make choices that hurt other people, especially children. When that happens, the right thing to do is to protect the children and make sure the adults face consequences for their harmful choices. Did you protect me, Daddy? I did my best to protect you, sweetheart. And I always will. 2 years after the criminal convictions, Emma and I established a tradition of volunteering at a local organization that helps children who have experienced family financial abuse. Emma, now old enough to understand the basics of our experience, wanted to help other children who had been hurt by family members. I want kids to know that when adults steal from them or treat them badly, it's not the kids' fault, Emma explained when she asked to volunteer. And I want them to know that good parents will always fight to protect their children. The experience taught both Emma and me that justice isn't just about punishment or financial recovery. True justice is about protecting innocent people from harm, ensuring that wrongdoers face consequences for their actions, and creating circumstances where victims can heal and flourish. Emma's confidence, academic success, and strong sense of self-worth proved that children are remarkably resilient when they're protected from toxic influences and surrounded by unconditional love and support. My family of 3 emerged from the experience stronger, more united, and more committed to treating each other with the respect and love that every person, especially every child, deserves. The final lesson came from Emma herself, when she was 9 years old and reflected on our experience. Daddy, I'm glad you found out about the bad things Grandma and Grandpa were doing, because now I know that my real family will always take care of me. That's when I realized that losing my parents and sister hadn't destroyed our family. It had simply revealed who our true family was, and that was more valuable than any inheritance they could have stolen from us. Have you ever had to choose between keeping peace with family members and protecting someone you love from their harmful behavior? How do you think parents should respond when they discover their children are being treated unfairly by extended family members? I'd love to hear your thoughts about standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult and painful. Thank you for listening to our story. I hope it reminds you that every child deserves to be valued, protected, and loved unconditionally. If this story resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe for more stories about justice and family relationships, share it with someone who might benefit from hearing about the importance of protecting children, and leave a comment about your own experiences with family dynamics and standing up for what's right. Sometimes the most important battles we fight are the ones that protect the people we love most, and those battles are always worth fighting, no matter how difficult they might be.